A damsel in distress, a full moon midnight, the month of April, a deep, dark forest. What happens when these ingredients are thrown into a magic cauldron by a 25-year-old poet who on honeydew hath fed and drunk the milk of paradise? Let us find out in this much awaited, much requested masterpiece by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. I have this feeling that many of you are quite familiar with who S.T. Coleridge was. As for the others, I'm going to give a very, very brief introduction. Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth, they were the pioneer figures of British Romantic movement. They published a book called Lyrical Ballads, in which they published poems which were completely different from the new classical kind of poetry. This book, which was published in 1798, brought about many changes in the way people looked at poetry. Although Wordsworth and Coleridge joined hands to produce this masterpiece, still they were completely different when it came to content, form, and type of expression that they used in their poems. While Wordsworth dealt with poems belonging to the natural world, common experiences of the common man, Coleridge focused on experiences that were out of the ordinary, out of the natural. He had planned to put Christabel in that book itself, but perhaps Wordsworth had some problems with it, so this book did not have the poem Christabel in it. The poem was written sometime around 1797 when Coleridge was 25 years old, and the second part was completed in 1800. This is the general belief, but it was not immediately published. It was eventually published in 1816 and is still considered to be one of the most mysterious poems by Coleridge. Many of you have already read Kubla Khan, and you know that Coleridge is fragmentary in that poem. Here also we find that the poem is not complete in itself, and it introduces a kind of a scenario, a situation which does not end in any resolution. It's going to be a long video, but I'm going to finish the whole thing today. If you feel tired in between, you can always pause, come back to it, but make sure you don't skip any part of it. Form-wise, this is a narrative poem which kind of tells you a story, almost like a ballad, but it doesn't have the rhyme scheme of a ballad, which is like a traditional 4-line stanza. Here we have inconsistent patterns when it comes to rhyme or stanzaic divisions. And in a way, the two parts, although they belong to the same poem, they represent two different worldviews altogether. So let's look at the text first, and then we can have a little bit of a discussion so far as a poet's perspectives are concerned and his attitudes are concerned. Part 1 begins with evocation of a mysterious surrounding. There is a detailed description of a forest area near a castle where a woman is seen. 'Tis the middle of night by the castle clock, and the owls have awakened the crowing cock. To wit, to woo, and hark again, the crowing cock, how drowsily it crew. So this is definitely midnight, and we have shrieks from owls, and these are very interesting because we have a paired sound, to wit, to woo. It's as if it's a mating call by female and male owls. What is interesting is that the crowing cock, which is supposed to bring in dawn or morning, is awakened by the call of the owls. So there is a kind of a duality established at the very onset. We do not know if the sound made by the birds, they are ominous or they are good. Sir Leonine, the Baron rich, so this castle belongs to Sir Leonine, who is a rich person, who is a baron, hath a toothless mastiff bitch. Now, mastiffs are very large breed dogs, and they were often kept as guard dogs. Possibly here we have a Tibetan Mastiff, but usually we associate this kind of a figure of a guard dog with something very masculine and something with a lot of strength. But here we see that this is not a male dog but a female dog, and it is toothless, which means that it doesn't have the kind of power that you actually need from a guard dog. From her kennel beneath the rock, she maketh answer to the clock. 4 for the quarters and 12 for the hour, ever and I by shine and shower. So all she does, this female dog, this bitch, is she answers the clock, the call of the clock. And during midnight, there are actually 16 dings. Why? One for each quarter. Quarter means 15 minutes. So in 1 hour, you have 4 15 minutes. So when it is 12 o'clock, then the clock first chimes the 4 quarters and then 12 sounds for 12 o'clock. So that is a total of 16 sounds. And every time the clock is striking, the dog is responding to it. 4 for the quarters and 12 for the hour, ever and I by shine and shower. So this is a routine which it maintains whether there is rain, whether there is storm, whether there is sunshine. So this is something which the dog does every day. 16 short howls, not over loud. Some say she sees my lady's shroud. Now who is this my lady? Possibly somebody who the dog can see, but human beings can't. And it is believed that, well, dogs can see spirits. So an ambience is created when it's midnight and the clock is striking 12, which is supposed to be the witching hour. Those who believe in the supernatural happenings, they feel that this is the time when evil spirits are most active. And this is the time when the dog possibly sees a spirit whom human beings cannot see. Is the night chilly and dark? Who is asking this question? The speaker of the poem. Who is the speaker of the poem? Some unnamed narrator who is telling us this story. So the question is, it is a chilly night, but is it a dark night? The night is chilly but not dark. So the speaker answers himself or herself. So there is a kind of an ambiguity, a duality. And in a way, with all romantic poets, we see that nature becomes more than just the atmosphere or the surroundings. Nature becomes a symbol of something which is happening inside the human mind. So here, nature's ambiguity is like a symbol of moral ambiguity. We do not know whether this hour is hour of the evil forces or the good forces, whether it's hour of the owl or hour of the crow. The thin grey cloud is spread on high. It covers but not hides the sky. See, again the same kind of ambiguity. The cloud is there and it's quite spread out, but it's not completely hiding the light of sky, that is the moon. The moon is behind and at the full, and yet she looks both small and dull. Because the moon is somewhat hidden by the cloud, so its full shine is not coming through and it's appearing to be dull and subdued. So this is a strange kind of a scene that is created in front of us, where the crow is making drowsy sounds, the dog's howl is short, so it doesn't have that full-fledged voice that usually we find in guard dogs, and the moon is not able to show off her whole grandeur, her whole light. So everything is kind of stifled, limited, controlled. The night is chill, the cloud is grey. 'Tis a month before the month of May, that is April. And usually we associate April with rejuvenation, with happiness, spring, color. But what kind of April is this? A chilly one? And the spring comes slowly up this way. So see, Even the spring is reluctant to come here. So there's a kind of inhibition that we see in all the natural objects that are described in the first part. Now we come to the character. Human element is introduced here. The lovely lady Christabel, whom her father loves so well, what makes her in the wood so late a furlong from the castle gate? Furlong is 220 yards, a cricket pitch is 22 yards, so 10 cricket pitches. You can imagine the distance. So she has come out in the middle of the night, away from the safety of her castle, and she has come to this forest which is like 220 yards away from her castle. She had dreams all yesternight of her own betrothed knight, and she in the midnight wood will pray for the weal of a lover that is far away. So she has this fiancé who is a knight. Knight is also a very glorified and powerful position, just like a baron is. So this story belongs to an age when there were barons and knights. So it was the feudal age, or the age of feudalism. And knights were supposed to be very chivalrous, and ladies used to love being courted by knights. So this Christabel girl, she has a fiancé who is a knight and who is away from her, and she had this dream, and now she wants to come out and pray for his prosperity, the lover who is away. This word weal, W-E-A-L, is an archaic word, and it's part of the expression weal and woe, where weal means prosperity, welfare. So she wants to pray for the welfare of her beloved or her lover. She stole along, she nothing spoke. The sighs she heaved were soft and low. So she was sighing. She was sad because her lover was far away, and there is a kind of a repressed sexual desire that can be detected in these words, these expressions that the poet uses. And naught was green upon the oak, but moss and rarest mistletoe. So she was standing in front of this oak tree, and there was nothing green on that tree because it was almost still winter. Spring has not yet arrived that well, and so the only green that could be seen on the oak tree was the patches of mistletoe. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant. Interestingly, oak and mistletoe, they are considered by pagan believers to be divine objects of nature. They have supernatural powers, they are mysterious. Okay, so there's this oak tree, and there's this covering of mistletoe and moss. She kneels beneath the huge oak tree, and in silence prayeth she. So we have a woman in the middle of the night praying in front of an oak tree covered with mistletoe. This does not evoke a conventional Christian or Catholic image at all, although we would later see that they have a perfectly fine chapel inside their castle, and she could very well go there and pray. But no, she decides to come here. So her choice of the prayer site is very important. So she is coming out of the protection of her Catholic household into this mysterious world of druids and leprechauns. And in silence prayeth she. The lady sprang up suddenly. The lovely Lady Christabel. Something happened and she sprang up. She was surprised, shocked. It moaned as near can be, but what it is she cannot tell. On the other side it seems to be of the huge broad-breasted old oak tree. Now she was praying in front of the oak tree, and it was a broad tree. So she could hear somebody moaning. Moaning is making groaning sounds. But she cannot understand at this point what creature is making that sound, because that creature is just on the opposite side of the huge tree. The night is chill, the forest bare. Is it the wind that moaneth bleak? The first thing that comes to our mind is that maybe it's the sound of the wind. There is not wind enough in the air to move away the ringlet curl from the lovely lady's cheek. There is not wind enough to twirl the one red leaf, the last of its clan, that dances as often as dance it can. She can see that there is no wind. The ringlet curl, the lock of hair that is hanging in front of her forehead, that is not shaken by any wind. So, of course, there is no wind. And if there was any wind, then that would move the one single leaf that was still hanging on to its dear life on the tree. So, there was one single leaf which was red because it was withering away by the cold. The one red leaf, the last of its clan. So, this leaf, strangely, is again a very ambiguous image. On one hand, it is representing winter because it's red leaf, but it's also representing spring because it's still holding on. So, within it, it contains the potential of death and the potential of life. So maybe it looks like one single entity, it contains both elements. So there is no wind to move that one single leaf which was still hanging, and it was like kind of dancing little, hanging so light and hanging so high on the topmost twig that looks up at the sky. You will come across a lot of alliteration here, and that creates the musicality, the lyric quality of this poem. So this leaf is described and it's a diversion because this part is actually about Christabel and her reaction to that noise. But the poet is talking at length about the leaf, which is apparently not relevant at all. Hush, beating heart of Christabel. She's scared. She doesn't know what is making that sound. Jesu, Maria, shield her well. Now, Jesu is the, again, archaic form of the word Jesus. Maria is, again, a Latinized form of Mary. These names are deliberately used in this way to create a poetic effect. She folded her arms beneath her cloak. So, this is all sign of withdrawal from the scene. She's trying to protect herself and stole to the other side of the oak. She still wants to go and see who is making that noise. What sees she there? So the narrative is taking the shape of a fairy tale here, as if an older person is telling us a story and we are little kids. So he says, what sees she there? There she sees a damsel bright. Damsel, it's a woman, and she is very bright, dressed in a silken robe of white. Now, normally we associate the word with innocence, purity, goodness. So, we have this primary feeling that if this woman is dressed in white and silk, definitely then she is a good woman. Okay, this is our primary idea. But don't forget, this is a night of ambiguity, duality, where what you see is not always what is real. That shadowy in the moonlight shone, the neck that made that white robe wan. So the robe was white, but her neck was even paler. So, in contrast, the robe looked dull compared to her skin. Her stately neck and arms were bare. Now, this was unusual because if she was wearing a silk robe, then she belonged to a rich family. Then, obviously, her arms wouldn't have been bare because it was a chilly night. So, there was a kind of inconsistency in the way she was dressed. It was not a conventional dress at all. Her blue veined feet unsandaled were. Her feet were planted to the ground. There was no shoe or sandal. and wildly glittered here and there the gems entangled in her hair. So there were these gems in her hairdo. Maybe they were not real gems, could have been the snow or drops of water or the flowers, but it doesn't matter. She looked very gorgeous, that we can understand here. I guess it was frightful there to see a lady so richly clad as she. Clad means dressed. So it was a very strange thing to see a lady who is so well decked. Beautiful exceedingly. And Christabel could understand that this was a very strange sight, and she could understand how beautiful this lady was standing in front of her. Mary, Mother, save me now, said Christabel. And who art thou? Something happened inside Christabel which made her feel that she needs to be saved. Now, this is one of the most ambiguous parts of this poem because we do not have any direct answers. We will discuss the possibilities. What does Christabel want to be saved from? Is she having any kind of sinister urges in her? She was praying for her lover. She was in a particular mood. The ambience is very eerie, and this lady emerges as if an answer to her prayers. So who knows? She might have thoughts in her mind which she herself does not approve of. She wants to know who the lady is. The lady is strange, made answer meet. So she answered appropriately, and she gives a story. And her voice was faint and sweet. Have pity on my sore distress. So she was in some great trouble, and she wants the pity of Christabel. I scarce can speak for weariness. I'm so tired I can't even speak. Coleridge's language is straightforward, simple. So you will not have much difficulty to understand what exactly is happening here. You will have difficulty to understand why is this happening at all. Stretch forth thy hand and have no fear, said Christabel. How camest thou here? And the lady, whose voice was faint and sweet, did thus pursue her answer meet. So when Christabel asks, from where have you come? She answers, my sire is of a noble line. Sire means father. So my father is a nobleman, and my name is Geraldine. Now, although many of us we pronounce Geraldine as Geraldine, looking at the previous line, I think we should stick to pronouncing it as Geraldine, which would rhyme with line. Okay, so it's a German name, and it actually means a ruler who bears a spear. So that's a very noble name, right? 5 warriors seized me yesterday morning. 5 warriors kidnapped me. Me, even me. A maid forlorn. I was a lonely woman, a maid, and they just captured me. They choked my cries with force and fright and tied me on a palfrey white. Palfrey is a kind of horse that is used for riding, especially by women. So usually palfrey, they are very gentle horses for riding. The palfrey was as fleet as wind, and they rode furiously behind. So her horse was moving, and they were moving just behind her. They spurred amain, their steeds were white. Again, see, she is describing 5 men who were riding on white horses. Normally, this image is, image of a savior who comes on a white horse. But here, they are not appearing to be good spirits, but evil ones, pursuing this lady, capturing her. And once we crossed the shade of night, once it was night time, as sure as heaven shall rescue me, I have no thought what men they be. What is strange is that she was captured during the day, and when it was nightfall, she felt more secure. It's as if her powers increased with night and their powers reduced. Nor do I know how long it is, for I have lain entranced, I wis. So she was as if lying in a trance, as if hypnotized, as if some spell was cast on her. Since one, the tallest of the five, took me from the palfrey's back. So she was taken from the horseback, a weary woman, scarce alive. I was almost dead because she felt like she was drugged or something. Some muttered words his comrades spoke. He placed me underneath this oak. So I was placed underneath this tree. He swore they would return with haste. Whither they went, I cannot tell. I thought, I heard, some minutes passed, sounds as of a castle bell. We have all heard that sound, right? Right when the poem was starting. So these five abductors, whoever they were, they have gone away, keeping her here in front of this oak tree. Stretch forth thy hand, thus ended she, and help a wretched maid to flee. Help wretched woman, a woman in distress, to escape. So she seeks assistance from Christabel. Then Christabel stretched forth her hand and comforted fair Geraldine, and she said comforting words. Oh well, bright dame, may you command the service of Sir Leonine. So she is acting as a gracious host and she is welcoming her into the protection of her father. She is referring to her father as Sir Leonine. That was the rule during those days. If your father was a nobleman, if he was a baron or a knight, then you should address, at least in public, your father as Sir. Okay, that was the rule. And gladly our stout chivalry will he send forth, and friends withal, to guide and guard you safe and free. Once my father gets to know about your problem, he's going to send these chivalry, these horsemen who would go and give you justice and will guard you, and you will be safe, in short. To guide and guard you safe and free home to your noble father's hall. So you would be escorted back to your palace by my father's horsemen. She rose, and forth with steps they passed that strove to be and were not fast. So this woman, Geraldine, she was not moving very fast. She was dragging herself almost. Her gracious stars the lady blessed, and thus spake on sweet Christabel. So Christabel is continuing to speak while she is taking Geraldine towards the castle. All our household are at rest, the hall as silent as the cell. Sir Leonine is weak in health, so her father, of course, he has become aged and he is not at the pink of his health right now, and may not well awakened be. So she wants to take Geraldine inside the castle without waking her father, because her father is now old and she doesn't want to disturb him. But we will move as if in stealth. Stealth means secretly, just like thieves do when they enter a household. Somehow, this whole scene, this whole idea of this stealthy walking through the midnight while the people in the castle are sleeping, this evokes the image that we have seen in Macbeth just before Duncan's murder, when Macbeth is walking towards Duncan's chamber and he doesn't want Duncan to get up. So a kind of an evil, foreboding scene is created in front of us who have already read Macbeth. And I beseech your courtesy this night to share your couch with me. And Christabel offers her own bed to Geraldine. She wants to share her bed with Geraldine because she doesn't want to wake any maids or servants to prepare a room for her. They crossed the moat. Now, moats are the conventional bridges outside castles that actually protect the castle from intruders. So they crossed the moat, and Christabel took the key that fitted well. She had gone out of the castle to pray. Obviously, she was carrying the key, and now she unlocks the door. A little door she opened straight all in the middle of the gate. Now, normally, when one single person or a couple of people they enter a castle, they don't open the entire gate. Whenever that whole gate is opened, usually the entire army passes. So it's like those small little openings you have in your main college gates through which the students pass, but only when a car comes, the whole gate opens. Here also, because they are just two people, therefore she opens a small opening on the main gate. The gate that was ironed within and without, where an army in battle array had marched out. So usually this gate was opened completely to let the army pass. Now, right when she opened the door and they were supposed to enter, it was made of iron. Okay, iron is again something that wards off evil, according to popular belief. So, when Geraldine is standing in front of the iron gate and she opens the small opening, right then she falls sick again. The lady sank, belike through pain, and Christabel with might and main lifted her up a weary weight. So Christabel was supporting the body of Geraldine over the threshold of the gate. She was almost carrying Geraldine through the threshold, through the border line between the outside and the inside world. This is very important. Geraldine could not pass the threshold without being supported by Christabel. Then the lady rose again. Right when she was inside, it's as if the pain was gone and moved as she were not in pain. So this is very weird, isn't it? She was in pain, and just when she is assisted inside the house, her pain is gone. So free from danger, free from fear, they crossed the court, right glad they were, and Christabel devoutly cried to the lady by her side. And Christabel was very happy that she could save a woman who was being captured by 5 bad men, and she wants to pray, and she actually prays aloud. Praise we the Virgin all divine. So she is praising or praying to Mother Mary that she is grateful that she could rescue this woman who hath rescued thee from thy distress. But Geraldine, who should have thanked Mother Mary herself, because Christabel says that Mother Mary is to be thanked because of the rescue, Geraldine does not respond in the appropriate way. She does not pray along with Christabel. She says, "Alas, alas," said Geraldine, "I cannot speak for weariness." Again, if you have read Macbeth, do you remember the time when Macbeth says that Amen was stuck in his throat when he was in most need of blessing, right after Duncan's murder, and when those drunk and drugged guards of Duncan, they made a short little prayer and put themselves back to sleep, he could not say Amen. So this inability to participate in any kind of covenant with God, any kind of connection with divinity, that creates the first doubt in us as to the reality of this woman. Why can't she be enthusiastic about praying to Mother Mary, just like Christabel is? So, free from danger, free from fear, they crossed the court, right glad they were. So there's a kind of repetition here, which is a pattern that narrative poetry often takes. It's as if it brings us back to the narrative, right when we were thinking about Macbeth and digressing. Outside her kennel, the mastiff old lay fast asleep. You remember that dog, that mastiff? So she was lying asleep. In moonshine cold, the mastiff old did not awake, yet she an angry moan did make. This dog was not awakened by anything extraordinary, but something was happening which made it feel uneasy in its sleep, and it was making a growling sound, which was not natural because Christabel never saw this dog growling at her. So these are the signals which we as readers can identify as omens, as indications that something is absolutely not right. And what can ail the mastiff bitch? Ail means torment. What is the problem with this dog? Never till now she uttered yell beneath the eye of Christabel, because she was a pet dog. Why would she growl when the owner or owner's daughter was walking past her? Perhaps it is the owlet's scritch. For what can ail the mastiff bitch? They pass the hall that echoes still. Pass as lightly as you will. So they pass through this hall which was so huge that no matter how lightly you passed, there was an echo. The brands were flat. There was this fireplace with logs of wood which were flat. The brands were dying, so it was all covered with its own ashes. Amid their own white ashes lying. It was past midnight, the fire was out. Okay, it was only ashes there. But when the lady passed, there came a tongue of light, a flit of flame, and Christabel saw the lady's eye, and nothing else saw she thereby, save the boss of the shield of Sir Leonine Tall, which hung in a murky old niche in the wall. Just when the lady passed, out of those ashes a flame leapt. So all these things are so magical, as if an enchantment is going on here. And when Christabel looked at this lady's eye, she could see the reflection, or she can see the embossed part or the raised part of the shield that her father used to wear during wars. "Oh, softly tread," said Christabel. "My father seldom sleepeth well." She doesn't want to wake her father up. Now you might feel, why is she being so secretive? That is something we can only guess. We may never know. Sweet Christabel her feet doth bear, and jealous of the listening air, they steal their way from stair to stair. Because it was a place where they were having these echoes of their footsteps, she wanted to move as silently as she could. So they steal their way from stair to stair, now in glimmer, now in gloom. Sometimes there was light, sometimes it was dark, and they were passing through. And now they passed the Baron's room, as still as death, with stifled breath. So they were passing her father's room, holding their breath. See, again an image of a repression. They were not making any sound. It was death-like. And now have reached her chamber door. So now they reach Christabel's room. And now does Geraldine press down the rushes of the chamber floor. Rushes are sweet-smelling grass that is thrown on the dirt floors of castles. In medieval rooms, it was a common practice. It provided insulation from cold, and also if you have those carpet-like grasses, then that would reduce the echoes that are usually found in rocky castles. The moon shines dim in the open air, and not a moonbeam enters here. Now this was a very dark room, but they without its light can see the chamber carved so curiously. But there is a diffused light in which they can still make out the carvings. And what were these carvings on the walls? Carved with figures strange and sweet, all made out of the carver's brain for a lady's chamber meet. Meet means appropriate. So whoever the sculptor was carved these figurines on the walls, matching the or making it appropriate for a maiden's room. So maybe there were figures of angels and flowers and butterflies, everything that suits a girl's room. The lamp with twofold silver chain is fastened to an angel's feet. So there was a figurine of an angel, and there was a chain hanging from it where there was a lamp. Okay, so it was a very beautiful figurine. The silver lamp burns dead and dim because Christabel was away for a long time. She had gone out to pray, and then this all happened. So by the time she came back, that lamp wick, the thread, had burnt down. So what Christabel did, she trimmed the burnt part, and therefore it started to have a new energy. With new light, the lamp started to burn. But Christabel, the lamp will trim, she trimmed the lamp and made it bright and left it swinging to and fro. Why was it swinging? Because it was hung onto the feet of the angel with the chain. So it was swinging. Right when the light came up, the room was less dark. The reaction of Geraldine is very interesting. While Geraldine, in wretched plight, she was suddenly suffering, wretched plight, sank down upon the floor below. So she has a similar bout of fit which she had while crossing the threshold. The same kind of reaction is seen here. She again sinks down to the floor, and Christabel feels that she is simply tired. "O weary Lady Geraldine, I pray you, drink this cordial wine." Now Christabel offers her a drink. "It's a wine of virtuous powers. My mother made it of wild flowers." Now, Christabel's mother, she was dead, and she used to make this wine, and this is called a cordial wine. Cordial means friendly, affectionate. So this wine is offered as a drink of friendship to Geraldine, and this was made by her mother, Christabel's mother. Listening about her mother, Geraldine asks if Christabel's mother would appreciate her coming into their house like this. "And will your mother pity me, who am a maiden most forlorn? I am such a lonely girl, and will your mother have sympathies with me?" Christabel answered, "Woe is me, she died the hour that I was born." Christabel said that my mother is no longer alive. She was dead the moment I was born. "I have heard the grey-haired friar tell how on her deathbed she did say." So friar means the father or the religious head, the churchman. He later told this story to Christabel about what happened when her mother was dying. How on her deathbed she did say that she should hear the castle bell strike 12 upon my wedding day. The mother had said that she would stay here in spirit till the day when Christabel would be married off and the clock would strike 12. Didn't we hear the clock strike 12 just a few moments back? "Oh, mother dear, that thou wert here." "I would," said Geraldine, "she were." So both of them, they are saying that it would be so nice if Christabel's mother would be here. And just the way Macbeth's call brought in the ghost of Banquo, he had said, "I wish you were here." They are also saying, we wish Christabel's mother was here. When suddenly something strange happens. "But soon with altered voice said she, Of wandering mother, peak and pine, I have power to bid thee flee." Suddenly her voice changes, as if she has seen something and she wants to shake that off. "Get off, away from here." Alas, what ails poor Geraldine? Why stares she with unsettled eye? Can she the bodiless dead espy? Espy means see. Can she see the spirits? Has a ghost come in? And why with hollow voice cries she, "Off, woman, off! This hour is mine. Though thou her guardian spirit be, off, woman, off! 'Tis given to me." What is given to her this moment? So this lady, Christabel, was like under the protection of her mother's spirit. Geraldine comes in and shoos away the spirit and says that this is a moment when you do not own this girl anymore, I own her. Sounds creepy, doesn't it? What kind of ownership is she talking about? Then Christabel knelt by the lady's side and raised to heaven her eyes so blue. Alas, said she, this ghastly ride, dear lady, it had wildered you. Christabel feels that the only thing that is wrong with Geraldine is her experience with the five men, and she's tired, so she's seeing things which not exist. So Christabel doesn't understand the sinister nature of Geraldine's intent. The lady wiped her moist, cold brow and faintly said, it is over now. So that spirit who had possibly come in to protect Christabel has gone away. Again, the wild flower wine she drank. So she is going on sipping. Her fair large eyes can glitter bright, and from the floor whereon she sank, the lofty lady stood upright. So she had fallen down, then she was shooing away that invisible spirit, and then she got up from the floor. She was most beautiful to see, like a lady of a far country. She had this exotic look about her. She was not very familiar so far as her features were concerned, and that adds to the mystery of Geraldine. And thus the lofty lady spake. Lofty means somebody who is standing tall, upright. All they who live in the upper sky do love you, holy Christabel, and you love them, and for their sake, and for the good which me befell, even I in my degree will try, fair maiden, to requite you well. So you are a very good girl, Christabel. Everybody loves you, the angels love you, and you have done me well, and I will requite you, I will compensate you, I will give you a reward. And then she instructs her, but now unrobe yourself, for I must pray, or yet in bed I lie. So you get undressed and get to sleep. I will pray before I come and join you. Quoth Christabel, so let it be. And as the lady bade, did she. Her gentle limbs did she undress and lay down in her loveliness. So Christabel, she undressed, she opened her robe, got into the sheets, and she was waiting for Geraldine to come to sleep. And Geraldine started to pray. But through her brain of weal and woe, so many thoughts moved to and fro. Now, Christabel had a very busy night so far, and her mind was distraught. She was not able to sleep or focus. That vain it were her lids to close. Lids means your eyes. So she could not close her eyelids. So halfway from the bed she rose, and on her elbow did recline. So she got up halfway from her bed and kind of reclined her head on her hand, a classic pose of a fair maiden, and then she was watching Geraldine. To look at the Lady Geraldine, what was she doing? Beneath the lamp the lady bowed and slowly rolled her eyes around. Then drawing in her breath aloud like one that shuddered, she unbound the cincture from beneath her breast. So Geraldine, she unclasped the band that she was wearing. Her silken robe and inner vest dropped to her feet and full in view. So she was also getting undressed. Fine. Behold, her bosom and half her side, a sight to dream of, not to tell. Oh, shield her, shield, sweet Christabel. So, two women disrobed, facing each other, completely naked, and that creates a very weird scene, especially in context of 18th century, a time when these things were unthinkable, when lesbianism was not something that people were comfortable talking about. Yet, Geraldine nor speaks nor stirs. Ah, what a stricken look was hers! Deep from within she seems halfway to lift some weight with sick essay. Now Geraldine was facing Christabel, and she was having this strange look in her eyes, as if there was a load in her heart and she was trying to lift it. So it was a moment when she was not very sure which course of action she should take. And eyes the maid and seeks delay. Eyes the maid. Eyes is verb here. So she is looking at Christabel and she wants to postpone some action which she thinks she's supposed to do. We thought they were just going to sleep. Then suddenly, as one defied, collects herself in scorn and pride, then she decides, she makes up her mind that no, whatever I've planned, I'm going to execute. And lay down by the maiden's side, and in her arms the maid she took, ah well a day. So the kind of expression that we see here used by the poet matches the kind of expression we see in love poems where lovers embrace each other. So this is again having a sinister perspective, you can say, if you consider the time when this was written. And with low voice and doleful look, these words did say. So after lying down with Christabel, Geraldine speaks something very important. Pay attention. In the touch of this bosom there worketh a spell. So she was touching Christabel and muttering a spell, which is Lord of thy utterance. So my spell is going to control your utterance. Utterance means something you speak out. So I'm going to control what you're going to say. Christabel, thou knowest tonight and wilt know tomorrow this mark of my shame, this seal of my sorrow. Something sinister, something shameful is going to happen, which you will know, but vainly thou warrest. But you are fighting in vain. Warrest means fight. For this is alone in thy power to declare, because you will not be able to say about these things out loud. The only thing that is in your power to say, to declare, is that in the dim forest you heard a low moaning and foundest a bright lady surpassingly fair. So the only thing that you will be able to tell people is that you met a girl in distress, a fair lady in forest, and didst bring her home with thee in love and charity to shield her and shelter her from the damp air. So the only record that you are going to declare is that you have rescued me from the forest. But what is going to happen now in this bed, that is never going to come out. You are going to keep that secret because I'm laying a spell on you. So there's kind of a hypnotism going on here. Part 1 ends. We don't know what happens because Christabel would never tell us. Her tongue is tied and the speaker is too conservative to actually explain any further. So we have a conclusion to part 1. It was a lovely sight to see the Lady Christabel when she was praying at the old oak tree. So this is kind of a summary of what has happened. The narrator is giving us a synopsis that this was a lovely sight when Christabel was praying at the oak tree. Amid the jagged shadows of mossy leafless boughs, kneeling in the moonlight to make her gentle vows. So when she was thinking about her night, her slender palms together pressed, so she was praying, heaving sometimes on her breast, so there was a slight movement in her arms. Her face resigned to bliss or bale, her face, oh call it fair, not pale. And both blue eyes more bright than clear, each about to have a tear. So now we have a description of Christabel who was praying at the oak tree. With open eyes, ah woe is me, asleep and dreaming fearfully, fearfully dreaming, yet I was dreaming that alone. Now the narrator says that maybe he was dreaming. Maybe whatever he saw did not actually happen because it was too terrible. Which is, oh sorrow and shame, can this be she? the lady who knelt at the old oak tree, and lo, the worker of these harms that holds the maiden in her arms. Who is the worker of these harms? Geraldine. So Geraldine is holding Christabel in her arms, seems to slumber still and mild as a mother with her child. And this uncomfortable simile that we have here, mother child, a mother initiates a child into a world, gives birth. So, how is Geraldine a mother to Christabel here? Because she is initiating Christabel into the world of lustfulness, of desire. Christabel, who had lived a suppressed life, a repressed life where she could not express her desires, she found an avenue of exposure here. A star hath set, a star hath risen. Now, with every fall of innocence, experience begins. So, a moment when somebody is undergoing any kind of transformation, the old self dies and a new self emerges. So, it's as if Christabel was getting a new birth. O Geraldine, since arms of thine have been the lovely lady's prison. She is like an initiator who is making Christabel experience something new in life. We don't know what. At the same time, this experience comes at a cost. The cost of being tied down. She is holding her in her arms, so she's literally tying her down. At the same time, her spell is tying her tongue down. O Geraldine, 1 hour was thine. Thou'st had thy will. By ta'en and rill the night birds all that hour were still. During that 1 hour, when they were together, the birds were not chirping, so everything was unnatural, silent. But now they are jubilant anew. From cliff and tower, to woo, to woo, to woo, to woo, from wood and fell. So it's 4 times now, it's more urgent now, as if nature is participating in this experience, finally. And see, the Lady Christabel gathers herself from out her trance. Her limbs relax, her countenance grows sad and soft. The descriptions that we have here match with the kind of experience a woman has after a satisfying encounter with her lover. So, the kind of sexual satisfaction with these lines hint, I'm again using the word hint because they are suggestive. They are not comfortably discussed in public discourse. So, we are never given any direct assertion. Her countenance grows sad and soft. The smooth, thin lids close over her eyes, and tears she sheds, large tears that leave the lashes bright. Maybe she has regrets, maybe she has remorse, or maybe these are tears of joy, tears of satisfaction. Who knows? And oft the while she seems to smile as infants at a sudden light. So it's like she's initiated into something, some witchcraft, some experience which she never had before. Yeah, she doth smile and she doth weep, like a youthful hermitess, beauteous in a wilderness, who praying always prays in sleep, and if she move unquietly perchance, 'tis but the blood so free comes back and tingles in her feet. No doubt she had a vision sweet. So she is in a dreamlike state, put in a trance, and she doesn't know whether she was dreaming or things really happened. What if her guardian spirit were? What if she knew her mother near? But this she knows, in joys and woes, that saints will aid if men will call, for the blue sky bends over all. So somehow, deep down, Christabel knows that no matter what has happened, no matter if I have sinned or not, if I really call divine powers, they will come and help me, because God's grace is everywhere. So that gives her a kind of assurance that no matter what she has done, she would be salvaged. Now, before going on to part 2, I want you to first understand that Coleridge doesn't randomly give names to his characters or to his poems. When he calls this poem Christabel, we really understand that Christabel is the focus of this poem. But when you look at the name Christabel and break it up into two parts, you're hit by the realization. You have Christ and you have Abel, and then you have Christabel. When you join these two words, Christ, the eternal Savior, and at the same time, someone who has suffered for all. And Abel was the son of Adam and Eve, who was murdered by his brother Cain. So Abel is the first victim of the Christian world. So these two figures, one who is murdered and one who actually courts death, these two figures of suffering, these two figures of victims with the possibility of being a Christ-like hero, everything is coming down to the name Christabel. So this name is a hint that Christabel receives a blow of destiny. But does she emerge like Christ? Does she become a hero? Or does she remain the eternal victim? Maybe the second part will give some answers. Part 2. Morning comes. Each matin bell, the Baron saith, knells us back to a world of death. Matin bell is the daily call to morning prayer, and they were usually rung at daybreak. So it was morning, and it is knelling us back to a world of death. Now that's strange, because when morning comes, usually we awake to life. But in Leonine's castle, what happens? People get awakened by the sound of death bell or knell. Why? Because Leonine's wife, that is Christabel's mother, had died during this time, and Leonine had ordered that every day the death bell would be rung to commemorate his wife, to make everybody remember that she is dead. Pretty gloomy, isn't it? Each matin bell, the Baron saith, knells us back to a world of death. These words Sir Leonine first said. So this was the order of Sir Leonine. When he rose and found his lady dead, these words Sir Leonine will say many a morn to his dying day. So it was a routine that he maintained. And hence the custom and law began that still at dawn the sacristan is the officer who is in charge of the church, the sacristy, that is like a sexton who takes care of these ringing of bells and these coffins and graveyards and everything. So his duty was, who duly pulls the heavy bell, 45 beads must tell, between each stroke a warning knell, which not a soul can choose but hear, from Bratha Head to Windermere. These are places in the Lake District. In short, this bell was heard across a long distance, and people were reminded of their mortality, about the imminence of death in the very morning. Saith Bracy the Bard. So Bracy is an important character in part 2. He was the bard of Sir Leonine, the official poet. So let it knell, and let the drowsy sacristan still count as slowly as he can. There is no lack of such, I ween, as well fill up the space between. So this was a common practice, and let this happen, said Bracy the Bard. In Langdale Pike and Witch's Lair and Dungeon Gill so foully rent, with ropes of rock and bells of air, 3 sinful sextons' ghosts are pent, who all give back one after the other the death note to their living brother. Now there is this living sexton who was in charge of the bell, and there were 3 dead sextons who were also responding to this bell. So this is all part of the imagination of the bard here. And off too by the knell offended, just as their 1, 2, 3 is ended, the devil mocks the doleful tale with a merry peal from Borrowdale. This whole ambience of the morning, which is supposed to bring happiness, brightness, joy, is bringing in reminders of death. The air is still. Through mist and cloud, that merry peal comes ringing loud, and Geraldine shakes off her dread and rises lightly from the bed. Why is Geraldine scared? Because of the church bells? Or because she had done something which she regrets? We don't know. Anyway, she rises from the bed, but we see that Christabel, she is still sleeping, and although the bell is rung every morning because of her mother's death, it doesn't affect her anymore. She is used to it, and she was so tired previous night. She's still sleeping on. Puts on her silken vestments white and tricks her hair in lovely plight. So she makes her hair very lovely, Geraldine, and nothing doubting of her spell awakens the Lady Christabel. She is sure that her spell is still working. She has no doubts about herself. She is so confident. She calls Christabel, wakes her up. Sleep you, sweet Lady Christabel. I trust that you have rested well. So it's like a common courtesy call that she's making, that have you slept well? And Christabel awoke and spied the same who lay down by her side, or rather say, the same whom she raised up beneath the old oak tree. So it was not the same woman who was lying with her. It was the woman who she had rescued. Because the woman who was lying beside her was not wearing anything, and this woman is wearing the white gown. So this woman was the woman she had rescued. It's the same woman, but it's just a way of expressing. Nay, fairer yet, and yet more fair. It was daytime, and she could see that Geraldine was a fair lady. For she belike had drunken deep of all the blessedness of sleep. So it appears that Geraldine also had a good night's sleep, and so she is very fresh. And while she spake, her looks, her airs, such gentle thankfulness declare. So Geraldine was looking very happy, satisfied that, so it seemed, her girded vests grew tight beneath her heaving breasts. Again, Christabel's attention shifted to the body of Geraldine, and the moment she saw Geraldine's body, "Sure, I have sinned," said Christabel. "Now heaven be praised if all be well." Christabel is unsure of what has happened. She is only having these faint glimpses in her mind. She is not certain of what exactly had happened. Now, they were drunk. This could have been logically happening, that she doesn't remember a thing. But we feel as readers that it was the magic spell that Geraldine had cast that has caused this forgetfulness. And in low faltering tones yet sweet did she the lofty lady greet. So she greeted Geraldine with such perplexity of mind, such doubts in her mind, such confusion in her mind, as dreams too lively leave behind, as if she was dreaming. And when you awake from a very action-packed dream, you can't focus on reality. This is happening to her too. So quickly she rose and quickly arrayed her maiden limbs, and having prayed that he who on the cross did groan, so now she's thinking about Christ, might wash away her sins unknown. She knows that something wrong has been done by her, but she doesn't know what. So she seeks forgiveness. She forthwith led fair Geraldine to meet her sire, Sir Leonine, and she takes Geraldine to meet her dad, her father. The lovely maid and the lady tall are pacing both into the hall. So they pass through that hall, and pacing on through page and groom. There were servants and people around. Now it's not a lonely place anymore. Entered the Baron's presence room. Now, presence room was the unofficial chamber where the Baron used to have his friendly meetings, whereas the office room was something different. The courtroom was the official place. The Baron rose, and while he pressed his gentle daughter to his breast, so the Baron, being a very affectionate father, he embraces his daughter, and he sees that there is this woman standing. With cheerful wonder in his eyes, the Lady Geraldine espies. Espies means he sees her, and gave such welcome to the same as might beseem so bright a dame. Now he, being a courteous man, a noble man, he greets her properly, appropriately. But when he heard the lady's tale, and when she told her father's name, why waxed Sir Leonine so pale, murmuring over the name again? So the moment he heard about her story and especially her father's name. Then he remembered that this was his friend, and his face became pale. Lord Roland of Tyrman. Alas, they had been friends in youth. But whispering tongues can poison truth, and constancy lives in realms above, and life is thorny, and youth is vain. Constancy lives in realms above means when you're friends with somebody, you may not remain friends constantly. So, constancy is a quality of the divine. In real human lives, friends move apart, they fight, enmity is caused. And so they were friends in their youth, but due to some unfortunate misunderstandings, they had grown apart. And to be wroth with one we love doth work like madness in the brain. And thus it chanced as I divined with Roland and Sir Leonine. So the speaker is saying that I think this has happened. Each spake words of high disdain and insult to his heart's best brother. So they had a fight where they spoke rude things to each other, and then with their large egos, they only grew apart, they did not come together anymore. They parted never to meet again, but never either found another to free the hollow heart from paining. They had this feeling of pain in them. They suffered being away from each other, but they could not come together. They stood aloof, the scars remaining like cliffs which had been rent asunder. So they were like cliffs who were broken apart. A dreary sea now flows between, but neither heat nor frost nor thunder shall wholly do away, I ween, the marks of that which once had been. So they were very good friends, and now they are not close to each other. So Geraldine's father and Christabel's father were very great friends when they were young. Sir Leonine, a moment's space, stood gazing on the damsel's face, and the youthful lord of Tyrmaine came back upon his heart again. And it happens that when you look at your friends' children, the faces of your friends, they look back at you. Oh, then the baron forgot his age, his noble heart swelled high with rage. He sore by the wounds in Jesus' side, he would proclaim it far and wide. Now he started to get angry, angry at the men who had tormented Geraldine. With trump and solemn heraldry that they, who thus had wronged the dame, the men who had been so violent with this lady, were base as spotted infamy. He declares that they are tyrants, they would be punished. And if they dare deny the same, if they deny that they have done anything like this to the damsel, my herald shall appoint a week and let the recreant traitors seek. So he decides to get hold of those 5 men who had tortured Geraldine, bring them to justice. My Tony court, that there and then I may dislodge their reptile souls from the bodies and forms of men. I will dislodge their souls from their bodies. I will kill them, in short. He spake, his eye in lightning rolls, for the lady was ruthlessly seized, and he kenned, he saw, in the beautiful lady the child of his friend. So it was the child of his friend, so he wanted to be protective towards her. And now the tears were on his face, and he was very emotional too, not just angry, because it was an opportunity for him to think about his old friend. And fondly in his arms he took fair Geraldine, who met the embrace. So he embraces Geraldine just as he had embraced the daughter a few moments back, prolonging it with joyous look. It was a long embrace, which when she viewed, a vision fell upon the soul of Christabel. But when Christabel was seeing all this, suddenly she felt very awkward. The vision of fear, the touch and pain, as if she was having glimpses from the previous night, something which she associated with pain, with touch. She shrunk and shuddered and saw again. Ah, woe is me! Was it for thee, thou gentle maid, such sights to see? So something was bothering Christabel. something that maidens should not be bothered about. Again she saw that bosom old. Again she felt that bosom cold. It was as if the vision from her previous night was coming back to her, but this time she saw that Geraldine was old and she was cold, whereas she had this feeling that she was very warm in bed with her. But her memories are playing tricks with her and drew in her breath with a hissing sound, whereat the night turned wildly round, and she made this very peculiar hissing sound like a snake, and her father turned towards her, and nothing saw but his own sweet maid with eyes upraised as one that prayed. And suddenly he looked at his daughter, and she was looking naturally at him as if she was looking up in prayer. The touch, the sight had passed away. So that memory which caught her off guard when she was looking at her father embracing Geraldine, that memory was only a fleeting moment. It did not last. She was back to herself, her composed self, and in its stead that vision blessed which comforted her after rest. Now all she remembered was feeling protected, satisfied, content with Geraldine in the morning. So, this duality of feeling is very, very uncomfortable for her because she is feeling negative, and then that feeling is covered with a feeling of positivity. So, we do not know for sure what had actually happened to her with Geraldine. While in the lady's arms she lay, had put a rapture in her breast, and on her lips and over her eyes spread smiles like light. She remembers the good part now. With new surprise, "What ails then, my beloved child?" the Baron said. So the Baron was surprised at what's wrong with my daughter. His daughter mild made answer, "All will yet be well. No, nothing is wrong." I ween she had no power to tell aught else, so mighty was the spell. She could not say anything else because she was under this spell. Yet he who saw this Geraldine had deemed her sure a thing divine. Such sorrow with such grace she blended. So when you looked at Geraldine, you would never doubt that she is a great woman. She is a lovely lady because she was so full of sorrow and grace, as if she feared she had offended sweet Christabel, that gentle maid. She pretended as if she had offended somebody and she was being apologetic. And looking at that face of Geraldine, Sir Leonine was feeling more sympathetic towards Geraldine. And with such lowly tones, she prayed she might be sent without delay home to her father's mansion. So she says, "Sir Leonine, that see, I think you should send me away." And the moment Sir Leonine hears this, he gets angry. "Nay, nay, by my soul," said Leonine. "Ho, Bracy the bard, the charge be thine. Go thou now." Leonine gives order to the bard, the poet, to go and get the horses ready so that the bard can go, Bracy can go with chosen people to Geraldine's home and inform her father that the daughter is safe and he can come and collect her. And Leonine wants this to happen because he wants his old friend back in his life, perhaps. "Go thou with sweet music and loud, and take two steeds with trappings proud, and take the youth whom thou lovest best." So you get a couple of people with you whom you like, take horses to bear thy harp and learn thy song, and compose a song on the way, and clothe you both in solemn vest, and over the mountains haste along. And then he gives a long description of how he would go and reach. "And when he has crossed the earthing flood, my merry bard," and then he goes on saying that you reach the end of Scotland. And let's come to the part where he would reach Lord Roland's house. He would say, "Thy daughter is safe." I'm just skipping a little bit. "Thy daughter is safe in Langdon Hall. Thy beautiful daughter is safe and free. Sir Leonine greets thee thus through me." So he instructs the bard to go and reach Geraldine's homeland, where he would inform her father that she is safe and he should come and collect her. And then Leonine goes on to say how he has missed his friend and how great a friend he was. He has never had a friend like him ever. And right then, we see that Geraldine is so moved by this action and she is so grateful that she fell, clasped his knees, her face upraised, her eyes overflowing. But Bracy, the bard, has a problem. He replied, with faltering voice, his gracious hail on all bestowing. So Bracy replies, thy words, thou sire of Christabel, are sweeter than my harp can tell. You speak so sweetly, sir, he is addressing Sir Leonine, that my music is not as good as that. Yet might I gain a boon of thee, I want a request to be considered. He wants a boon, a permission. This day my journey should not be. I don't want to go today. Why? Something bad has happened. So strange a dream hath come to me. So he believes that he had a dream, that I had vowed with music loud to clear yon wood from thing unblessed. So there's something unblessed, something evil in the forest around the castle, and I want to go there and sing the Lord's song to clean the wood of this evil spirit. And then he goes on to explain his dream. What was the dream that the bard had? For in my sleep I saw that dove, that gentle bird whom thou dost love and callest by thy own daughter's name. So Leonine has a dove, a bird. It's like a pigeon. And the name of the dove is also Christabel. So this dream was about that dove. Sir Leonine, I saw the same fluttering and uttering fearful moan. So Bracy had a dream that this dove Christabel was suffering and making moaning sounds among the green herbs in the forest alone. Which when I saw and when I heard, I wondered what might ail the bird. So I heard and thought that what's wrong with the bird? Let's find out. He went close. For nothing near it could I see, save the grass and green herbs underneath the old tree. But there was nothing wrong with the bird. And in my dream, methought I went to search out what might there be found. So he went even closer. And what the sweet bird's trouble meant, that does lay fluttering on the ground. I went and peered. I went very close and saw, and could descry, and could find out. No cause for her distressful cry. There was no reason why she was uncomfortable, crying. But yet for her dear lady's sake, I stooped, methought, the dove to take. So I wanted to pick the dove up, and then I saw something bad. When lo, I saw a bright green snake coiled around its wings and neck. A green snake had coiled around the bird. Green as the herbs on which it couched, close by the dove's, its head it crouched, and with the dove it heaves and stirs, swelling its neck as she swelled hers. So the snake was as if in tune with the bird, and their movements matched too. So he saw a movement where the powerful snake, the powerless dove, they had a synchronized movement. Well, shortly before Coleridge began writing Christabel, a fellow named Johann Wolfgang von Goethe published a story called Das Märchen. A story is complicated, weird, but it has a green snake in it. And it kind of represents a bridge between the real world, which you can see outside, and the inner world. And the moral of the story is we can be truly happy only when we are free to be who we are from the inside. Scholars have connected the green snake of Das Märchen with the green snake of Christabel. The snake is not by default an evil force, but it's a repressed sexual energy which is lying hidden inside Christabel, which it wants to come out. I woke. So the bard continues. It was the midnight hour. It was the same moment when Christabel was encountering Geraldine for the first time. The clock was echoing in the tower, but though my slumber was gone by, this dream it would not pass away. It seems to live upon my eye. And the bard is very disturbed. He wants to get this evil force out of the forest. And thence I vowed this self same day. I had made a promise to myself, with music strong and saintly song, to wander through the forest bare lest aught unholy loitered there. I want to get this forest clean. While Bracy was talking, the Baron was hardly listening. It's as if he was also put in a trance. Thus Bracy said, the Baron the while, half listening, heard him with a smile. It's as if he is not even registering what the Baron is saying. Then turned to Lady Geraldine, his eyes made up of wonder and love, and said in courtly accents fine, Sweet mate, Lord Roland's beauteous dove. So the bard feels that Christabel is the dove who is in danger, but the Baron thinks that Geraldine is the dove and the 5 men were the serpents or the snakes who must be crushed. Sweet maid, Lord Roland's beauteous dove, with arms more strong than harp or song, thy sire and I will crush the snake. So I don't need this bard. I can crush any snake which will come and threaten you. He kissed her forehead as he spake, and Geraldine in maiden wise, casting down her large bright eyes with blushing cheek and curtsy fine. So when he was kissing Geraldine, she was responding just as a proper maid should respond to an affectionate courtier. She turned her from Sir Leonine, softly gathering up her train. So she takes a step back and then she looks at Christabel. Let me skip a little bit again. And looked askance at Christabel. Jesu Maria, shield her well. So these are the moments when Christabel needs to be blessed. Because these are those moments when Geraldine is showing her true self. Askance when you look at somebody in a fleeting way, in a sly way. A snake's small eye blinks dull and shy, and the lady's eyes, they shrunk in her head. Her eyes were as if superimposed into a snake's eye. Christabel, Geraldine, becomes a monstrous figure, an evil figure. At Christabel she looked askance one moment, and the sight was fled. It was just momentary. But Christabel in dizzy trance, tumbling on the unsteady ground. So now we see Christabel doing the things which Geraldine was doing the previous night. She is falling down. She is behaving like a serpent herself. She is as if transposing onto herself the entire personality of Geraldine. We see innocence getting corrupted with every passing moment. Stumbling on the unsteady ground, shuddered aloud with a hissing sound. This word hissing is getting repeated here. And Geraldine again turned round, and like a thing that sought relief, full of wonder and full of grief, she rolled her large bright eyes divine wildly on Sir Leonine. So while Christabel was acting like a snake, Geraldine was acting like a divine figure. The maid, alas, her thoughts are gone, she nothing sees, no sight but one. The maid, devoid of guile and sin, I know not how, in fearful wise. So deeply she had drunken in that look, those shrunken serpent eyes, that all her features were resigned to this sole image in her mind. So much this serpent-like look had affected Christabel that she was expressing this expression on her face continuously, and passively did imitate that look of dull and treacherous hate. And once her father saw that she was looking with so much hatred, he got very angry, because he doesn't have any clue as to what could have happened between Geraldine and his daughter the previous night. And thus she stood in dizzy trance, still picturing that look askance, with forced unconscious sympathy, full before her father's view. Her father could see everything, as far as such a look could be, in eyes so innocent and blue, and it did not match her general appearance, because Christabel is a sweet girl, and she is giving off this hateful stare which her father could not understand. And when the trance was over, the maid paused a while and inly prayed, and then she actually fell to her father's feet and said, "By my mother's soul do I entreat that thou this woman send away." Now, this was very offensive for Sir Leonine, because he is almost like King Lear here, talking to Cordelia, that how can you defy me? I am the king, I am your father, I should be never overruled by your words. That is exactly the reaction we have here. So we will go to the part where he is reacting to this request. Within the baron's heart and brain, if thoughts like these had any share, they only swelled his rage and pain. He was very angry, and did but work confusion there. His heart was cleft with pain and rage, his cheeks they quivered, his eyes were wild, dishonored thus in his old age, dishonored by his only child. And all his hospitality to the wrong daughter of his friend, by more than woman's jealousy, brought thus to a disgraceful end. Because of a jealous daughter, he cannot show the kind of courtesy he wants to show to his friend's daughter. He rolled his eye with stern regard upon the gentle minstrel bard. He completely ignores his daughter. He looks at the bard and says, "I don't care about your plans of singing in the forest. You simply leave right now. Do as I say." So this is a kind of an assertion of his power here. "Why, Bracy, dost thou loiter here? I bade thee, hence." The bard obeyed. And turning from his own sweet maid, the aged knight, Sir Leonine, led forth the Lady Geraldine. So he kind of literally turns his back upon his daughter and leaves the place accompanied by Geraldine. Unfinished, incomplete, we do not know what happened, how things turn out after this. We can't even have any guesses here. We have a conclusion where we have this feeling that maybe some resolution will be provided, just as in case of part 1, but we do not get any such thing. A little child, a limber elf, singing, dancing to itself, a fairy thing with red round cheeks that always finds and never seeks. So it begins with a description of Christabel when she was young, a child, and then the poem completely goes on a different track altogether. It's no more about Geraldine or what happens between her and Christabel. It's about Christabel, her father, and the rudeness that he shows, and we have a conclusion like this here. He at last must needs express his love's excess. The father has excessive love for the child, and how does he express it? With words of unmeant bitterness. And it happens with parents that they often end up using rude words while they're actually feeling a lot of love. And then he concludes saying that perhaps it is tender too and pretty at each wild word to feel within a sweet recoil of love and pity. And what if, in a world of sin, O sorrow and shame, should this be true, such giddiness of heart and brain comes seldom save from rage and pain, so talks as it's most used to do. Now it happens that sometimes we are not aware of how painful our words might be to our children when, as parents, we are overwhelmed by our own emotions. Now, in one of Coleridge's published notebooks, he wrote, I'm quoting him, "A kind-hearted man obliged to give a refusal." So when a person is very kind-hearted, but he has to refuse something, or the like, that will give great pain. When a kind-hearted person knows that my words are going to cause great pain, finds relief in doing it roughly and fiercely. So he has this idea that when a kind man knows that his words are going to have a negative effect, they are bitter and they deliberately make it more bitter. And it seems that this final part of the completed poem attempts to do that. And so far as dreams are concerned, in the book where Kubla Khan and Christabel was published together, there was another poem which was called The Pains of Sleep. And there he writes about the nightmares he had been having, the unfathomable hell within, the horror of their deeds to view, to know and loathe, yet wish and do. So, sleep doesn't always bring about rejuvenation, it may also bring about a feeling of rage and punishment and sorrow and confusion. And here we see that through this apparently incomplete narrative, we have characters who are not at all sorted. We are not sure why we hate Geraldine. We do not know if Christabel really is to blame for what happens or not. Just like some people say that witches are responsible for Macbeth's fall, and I say that it was Macbeth who actually knocks at their gate. Similarly, Geraldine was powerless to corrupt Christabel unless she invited her in, unless she gave her consent. Scholars have even tried to analyze this whole narrative in terms of doubles. There are so many images of parallelism here that at one point we begin to feel that Christabel has conjured Geraldine out of her own subconscious and out of her own desire to express things which she cannot express normally. The kind of comfortable interaction which she doesn't have with her father is enjoyed by Geraldine. So everything that Christabel does not have, does not possess, is conjuring up this image of this mother figure, this guardian angel, who is treated with a kind of envy when Christabel realizes that she is basically all alone and by herself. So far as exams are concerned, you might be asked about the supernaturalism. You might come across critical analysis papers describing Geraldine as a vampire and especially referring to this connection with the oak tree and the iron, things which are used to make those stakes that pass through the vampire's heart and kill them. You might see her as a witch like figure, but there is no general consensus. It is not universally accepted that she was a vampire or she was a particular type of supernatural being. Coleridge didn't want to categorize Geraldine as any one kind of figure. He is vague and deliberately so because if it is explainable by human vocabulary, it is not supernatural. For Coleridge, supernaturalism was important. But this poem is not about supernaturalism. This poem is about a human being's reaction to supernaturalism. And you would see that none of the things that he describes are unnatural. There is a thing called oak tree. There is a thing called a full moon, owls, mastiffs, midnight. Everything that is described is natural, just like Shakespeare does in Macbeth. But by some strange alchemy, by this strange, as I was telling you, magical power of secondary imagination, asymplastic imagination, he is putting every experience into this magic cauldron and making all into one. So Christabel is like Coleridge's manifestation of secondary imagination, where the eeriness, the supernaturalism is created right from the bosom of earth. And Geraldine, who we consider to be unnatural, has her feet planted on the ground, while the mistletoe doesn't have roots. So there is this inversion of expectations, this wild display of eeriness, and this absolute disregard of logical explanation. This poem is something which Keats would call loaded with negative capability. When nothing is explained, nothing is given to us with any kind of conclusion. Although we have, again, a double set of conclusions which have this air of trying to solve something for us. as if he is concluding, giving a resolution, but the conclusions are as vague as the main content. This was a general textual reading of Christabel with you. If you want any specific perspectives to dwell on, any particular ideas I could develop on, you can write them in the comment section. So far as exams are concerned, you might be asked questions like what are the supernatural elements? So don't forget to mention that all the supernatural elements have their roots in nature. So it's nature to supernature. This has to be mentioned, okay? You might be asked to talk about the relation between Geraldine and Christabel. You might be asked to write on the title of Christabel, and don't forget to mention those two words, Christ and Abel, in that context. If you are given a general critical analysis type question, do talk about the narrative pattern, the ballad-like format, and if you have Kubla Khan in your syllabus, then try to bring in some comparative elements, because both of these are fragments. So you might find something in common, something which you can relate to in that other poem. If you bring in these references, cross references, then your answers will get more body and volume, and your examiners will appreciate it. A final tip: always try to give a long reading of this poem by yourself. Read it aloud once, twice, thrice, and then you will understand the eeriness. Because a poem is not about the meanings of the words, it's about the experience of meaninglessness at times. I hope you have enjoyed today's class. See you all in my next class very soon, and thank you for your lovely wishes. I'm doing very, very fine right now. The fever is gone. I'm doing very well right now, and really I'm so grateful for your good wishes. This is Monami Mukherjee signing off. See you all soon in my next video. Till then, stay happy, stay subscribed. Bye-bye.